Good evening and welcome to this first edition of the Moriah Nightly News. This will probably be a bit shorter, given the length of the day, the difficulties of the day in getting things up and running, as you'll see running across the bottom screen. This was day one of the full-scale operations for the Moriah channel in trying to get everything off the ground, and very much so if you've ever worked in or with any kind of software, there's always a bit of a learning curve in the beginning, and some of our streams today were a bit rough in the get-go. So what this program will be is both informational news mixed with a little bit of commentary and perspective, somewhat like what you might see in some of the bigger networks. But of course with a little bit of a local feel, mixing for the time being some of the local news in with the national. Now on the national level, of course, the big news, of course, in the last month has been the war in the Middle East, in Iran, and some of those other places with Israel and the other nations getting involved, and a very interesting situation, to say the least. Interesting because a known enemy of America for decades has domestic support at home, and a fractured people and where the consensus is not clear with the president's own people. And what I mean by that is a man who backed terrorism and oppressed people for decades in power, an oppressive regime, has more sympathy than people like people who speak out against them at home. And I'm sure some of you might know what I'm talking about there. But regardless of party, right should be right and wrong should be wrong. But it's not. And that's the world we live in today. And if you ask me, this war was a long time coming, and we are better off without this man in power. And in the long run, this has the potential to let's not be short-sighted, and I'll leave it at that, because we don't know how this is going to play out. Gas prices are rising at home, and of course, because they're using the Strait of Hormuz for leverage. And of course, it'll all come down to strategy. That's why, of course, last week there was a report of 2,500 Marines being sent in by the aircraft carrier. I believe it was the USS. I don't know, it wasn't Gerald Ford, but more hardware sent to the region. And I would not jump to the conclusion that just because you have 2,500 Marines headed in that direction, that's going to mean a full-scale operation, a ground invasion. And as far as strategy goes, many people claim that the president has not been clear or transparent on what the objectives are, and in some ways that is probably for the better. not giving away your hand to the opposition. Of course, it was interesting today as I was reading about the history between the United States with President Reagan in the 1980s in the fall of communism with Pope John Paul II. Noting, of course, the special relationship that John Paul II had with Poland and working behind the Iron Curtain and strengthening Poland's morale. Meanwhile, while President Reagan worked to bring down the Berlin Wall. Interesting to me that at that point in time, the moral authority of both the church and the president was united. And today, we have an American pope for the first time ever on the chair of Peter, and he refuses to visit the United States for America's 250th birthday, and has no clue about his own doctrine about just war theory or any of that, and has no sense of the Old Testament, no sense of the people of Israel, and so I'm not surprised there, and we'll be following that more closely in the days ahead. And so it's just it was really disappointing to see this the fracturing of the what was once the moral authority as far as the church leadership, from going from John Paul II down to what we have now in the papacy. And I'm sure that'll be a controversial statement, and I will take that as it may come. ICE agents, I guess the president found a way to bypass the Democratic holdup on Department of Homeland Security funding. So here there have been reports for the last few weeks about Homeland Security funding being held hostage because in an attempt to block ICE agents. And in the midst of this conflict, Iranian sleeper cells have been reported to have been activated or have been spotted through, whether that's through the CIA or through the FBI. There have been reports of anti-Semitism on the rise. We've had attacks on synagogues out in the Midwest and out that way. And it quite honestly is pathetic. Pathetic that these people are claiming to represent the United States and cannot bring about the guaranteed funding for security in a time when it is needed. And this will be the of course I'm giving this as a foundational overview, I suppose, for where this what we'll be covering in the next couple of weeks, because I don't foresee this as being a short conflict, not necessarily a long one either, but it will probably take a little bit of time depending on how things play out and what we'll see, and ultimately God will have the final say on the plan. So I am not by any means a professional anchor, and yet this will take some time to polish my skill set, and I thank you for being patient along the way. The other thing in local news, switching over to the local news for the township of Moriah here in Essex County, New York. The town of Moriah recently received a $4.5 million grant. Has been all over the local press and media, mostly in the newspapers, that through this New York State revitalization program, Governor Hochul awarded The town of Moriah, $4.5 million. I think there was reports that Ogdensburg, a little bit to the northwest, also received about $10 million as well in funding to, I suppose, in an effort for the state to push more money towards this part of the state and in this region. And this has always been a source of tension among the folks up here, that anybody that has lived here long enough, that nobody in Albany or downstate really cares about the people upstate. The Democratic agenda has, quite frankly, bankrupted upstate New York, and that's not just here. That stretches from the Canadian border all the way down. Pretty much, if you're not in New York City, you're not getting anything. And I would hope that people would wake up to see what's really going on here. But I do hope that the grant money will, at least on the local level, be put to somewhat of a good use. The plan right now is that this money would be used to revamp the downtown area in Port Henry, along where the Lee House is right now, along that corridor there on Main Street. A lot of, I hope that the plan is more economic than just wasting the space. There's also the Sun, the Times of Thai edition reports that that options are being considered to develop the former property in what used to be the high school. And again, it all depends on, I believe, how it's used. That will the parcel of land be put to some form of positive, beneficial, economic use, or just wasted on some half-bit project? And yes, I am being a little bit more strongly opinionated than normal. And finally, to close out for the evening, again, day one has wrapped up to a close on the Moriah channel. A little bit of glitches here and there. Definitely gaps in the stream due to certain content issues, and hopefully that will run smoothly as we go along. And so this broadcast will hopefully air in syndication and be posted on the regular YouTube page and Facebook and all of that. So thank you, God bless you, and stay well.